Hey guys, and welcome back to The Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with the help of one of my friends, we'll be talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch. And this week, we are rejoined by Ryan Wall. Welcome back, man.
Hey, nice to be back. I appreciate you inviting me back.
Nice to have you. So this week, we're going to be talking about episode 10, Common Ground. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that if you would prefer to listen to the audio version of this review, you can find it at the Franchise Fatigue podcast feed. And let's just dive right into this one. So as I said, this one is Common Ground. It's written by Gersimran Sandhu. She wrote Cut and Run earlier on this season. And the director was Saul Ruiz. A couple new cast members to mention. We have Alexander Siddig as Senator Avi Singh. He's been around in a lot of stuff. I know him best as Doran Martell, the crippled Prince of Dorne from Game of Thrones. And then there's Sean Clifford. She voices the protocol droid GS8. She's best known for being in Fleabag, which is funny because Phoebe Waller-Bridge voices L3 from Solo, and she was the lead of Fleabag. So maybe look at the whole cast in here as droids at some point or another. So for this one, the Bad Batch gets another job from Sid to rescue a former separatist senator from the Empire on the former capital of the Confederacy, Raxus. And after all the bounty hunter drama last week, Hunter opts to leave Omega behind, much to her chagrin. The mission goes well, about as well as usual, with lots of explosions and violence, but ultimately the senator is rescued. But back at Sid's place, Omega and Sid start a Dejarik. Is it Dejarik? Dejarik? I've never actually heard that pronounced.
I think it's Dejarik.
Dejarik. Okay.
We're either wrong or we're just.
Yeah. I mean, like, even in Star Wars, they couldn't figure out what Han's name was, so
Yeah.
I don't feel too bad. So they start a Dejarik hustle, which pays off the team's debts. And we end with Hunter and Omega playing a game to decide whether or not she will rejoin the team on all future missions, and she definitely won. All right, Ryan, what did you think of this episode?
I think it was among the weaker of the episodes. I think that the opening of it and the general conceit of the episode is really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I love the aspect of these clones who are used to fighting the Confederacy for, basically their whole lives.
That's why they were created.
Yeah, exactly. Now suddenly having to rescue a former separatist senator, and the problem I have with the episode is that it doesn't capitalize on that drama enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the general conceit of it is beyond fascinating. I hope that they explore more things like this in the future.
Yeah, I had some similar disappointments. And I had that one along with another one, but I think there's still a lot of good in this episode. It's definitely on the good side of the scale, but the series has been just getting better and better and better with pretty much the last 5 or 6 episodes have all been better than the last. And then we have a good one. It's like a little disappointing, but you know, but let's talk about that. So last time we were on Raxus, I don't know if it was last time, but we the big appearance of this planet that I remember was in the episode Heroes on Both Sides from Clone Wars. I think season 3-ish. And that's where we met Senator Bonteri and her son Lux. And hold on, my computer needs power for some reason.
We can edit that part.
I don't even edit these. It just saves time. But last time we saw this planet was in that episode, and that was where Padme was trying to start peace talks with the Separatists, and we met one of their senators and Lux Bonteri, with that kind of friendship between him and Ahsoka formed, and we learned that, which should be pretty obvious, that not everyone at the Confederacy is evil. They're not all Sith Lords. Some of them just had very technical legal disagreements with how the Republic was run, and they just wanted to have their own government. And as you said, going back to Raxus and seeing and dealing with a senator and having to rescue him, and the Bad Batch dealing with all these feelings of this is the enemy. Now they're having the old war's over. It's a new war, so now they're having to be friends with the old enemies. It's a mess. And and I think Echo is the Hunter is also very distrusting, but Echo seems to be the main voice, which makes sense, considering what happened to him. And also, it is a sign of I think very confident storytelling that they didn't have him you remember it was the Separatists that did this to me. We saw it. They just kind of trust the audience in that way, which is something they do a lot in the show, and I appreciate it. But
they did do a subtle thing where they with what's the droid's name? GSO?
GS8, I think.
GS8. I'm sorry. When they first found out the client was a droid, it was like a scandal,
Yeah,
which is like it's a subtle way of reminding you that these guys have been fighting droids their whole lives. So,
I love for Hunter and Echo, it's a Separatist. For records, a droid.
Yeah.
Different levels of sophistication there.
Yeah.
But I think the big missed opportunity of this episode was not having a conversation between the Senator and Echo. Because the Clone Wars was so full, like a lot of people didn't like it, but it was so full of these very technical political discussions. Where in that episode we met the Separatist Senator, it just got into the very real issues of this world and the whys of these conflicts. And they were setting it up. The whole episode is these constant questions about the Separatists, and just to not have that conversation just felt like a serious missed opportunity to me.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I mean, I'm not saying there's no world in which you would have written this episode without that surface level animus about rescuing a Separatist senator.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, if I was writing this episode, if I was sitting down and that was my conceit, I would probably force a situation where they would have to trust one another in a significant way.
Mm-hmm.
It just it failed to capitalize on that basic conceit of the episode in a wholly satisfying way. It's not like they completely sidestepped it, but I feel like they did the bare minimum with regard to that.
Yeah, and also, I want to hear Senator Singh's reservations about trusting clones. These very, very inhuman, faceless creatures that the Republic created to attack them with. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah,
and that's why this episode exists. That's why they wrote this episode in this way, to force that kind of reconciliation and finding common ground.
And even putting it on the planet where we're used to seeing that anyway, it's but
yeah. That was a little disappointing. But just some positives. The planet of Raxus is just a gorgeous location. I think one of the most beautiful so far in the show, and there have been a lot of really cool ones.
Mm-hmm.
Just the kind of the golden hour light filtering through the buildings, the trees. There's this just beautiful haziness all about it. I love the classical European architecture. We don't see much of that in Star Wars. Usually it's either like really techno futuristic or grunge futuristic. There's very little classical beauty there. We get Naboo, which is one of my favorite Star Wars planets, but it was lovely seeing that and being in that world.
Yeah, Naboo is like space Italy on steroids. So
some of it was shot, I believe, in Italy.
That makes sense.
And Attack of the Clones, they did do some European locations. I think it was Italy. Yeah, just that whole location is beautiful. And speaking of Italy, the sequence where they're sneaking around the building to try and casing it and then sneaking into it, reminded me of Assassin's Creed, particularly Assassin's Creed 2. Just the way the streets are set up, and you got the two guards in front of the door, the patrols around, and you're watching. Okay, do I take these guards out? Do I sneak past them? The whole thing was giving me serious.
Just used a more PG distraction.
Yeah, it was just giving me serious. Oh yeah, in Assassin's Creed, you probably sent in some prostitutes or something to distract them. But yeah, that was just that whole thing was fun. And then we go into that running tank battle, and just tank battles are cool. You can't make one that's not fun.
Yeah, and the ATTE is a cool vehicle, and the Clone Wars and now the Bad Batch has never failed to use it very well. Even in even in the much maligned Clone Wars movie with the like cliffside scaling ATTE thing.
Uh-huh.
But I love the moment where there's one of them is decommissioned and the other one just walks casually over it. Like that's a cool vehicle. I love that vehicle.
There's something so intrinsically engaging about the motion with the what's the
Lumber.
word? Yeah, the body is kind of flexible, and just
Yeah.
the sound design, and just the legs, and it's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And my second video game reference this week, that whole sequence reminded me of like Call of Duty 2 or the recent Call of Duty World War 2, where the tank battles where you're stuck in like this really crappy American or Russian tank and you're fighting like panzers and tigers. So you can't actually, so you just have to like run around buildings and maybe get a pot shot in the rear.
Yeah.
So that whole just like trying to maneuver around buildings, it just, it's brought back a lot of awesome memories.
Yeah, I think overall the whole tank chase was to me very good. I mean,
Mhm.
like you said, you can't really go wrong with a tank chase. But as far as the action goes, I think the episode did an absolutely fine job.
Hunter's slide as he's stunning troopers. He goes the slides behind the leg of the tank, just blasting a row of troopers is awesome.
Yeah, I will say one minor thing with the infiltration is like these guys have the voice of everyone guarding that building, and they literally knocked out several people that they could just wear the armor for. Like
I never thought about that.
like, and we know the size fits that except maybe Wrecker, but
Yeah, that's like the oldest trick in the book, and every single show has used it at some point.
yeah.
Particularly Rebels
these
and
guys
Resistance.
yeah, but these guys are like the most capable of using that trick and decide not to.
I think they would consider it kind of like just insulting. Like, we're the Bad Batch. We are not rigs. Yeah. We don't have to hide from these losers. We're just gonna punch them and slam their head into a vase. I love
like that vase anyway.
I love the droid. Like, they got a droid that has every bit of the kind of the fussy fastidiousness and protocol of a droid, but also is actually, unlike C-3PO, really enjoys the action.
Yeah.
is getting into her role. Like, I can do this. She just walks around to distract them again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little fun touches. Like, this episode is just as full of just kind of fun stuff like as any other episode. Then we get to the Omega side, and this is another issue that I have with this episode. Like, it's like, logically, it's understandable that after what happened last week, Hunter would be hesitant to bring her into action again. But dramatically and thematically, we had this arc like 4 or 5 episodes ago. So it just kind of felt like we're treading water and like dealing with ground we've already covered dramatically. And just I love the Bad Batch, but I think they are inherently less interesting when Omega's not there. There's something about the dynamic of having Omega in on the action and having to, watch out for her, and her, doing, finding these other ways around, and like her resourcefulness. Like, there's something about that dynamic that has made the action and mission so much fun. That while this was fun, they really missed her, and that's the point in a way, because this episode is about why they need Omega.
Right.
But also, it's the point, but also I'm less interested. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
I think if I'm going to obey the general conceit of the episode without like total rewrites, I think probably what I would have done is, if you're going to leave Omega there to begin with, and it was mighty convenient that she has a extreme knack for Dejarik to be able to pay off their debts, but I digress. I actually like that part.
They're programmed, though. Like, the clones, they're programmed with all this stuff.
I like that aspect of her. I'm not in any way dissing it, but if we could have taken that screen time and devoted it to this tension between the Senator and Echo in particular, you could have had that tension of they kind of have to babysit this guy. He's a non-combatant, and there's a fundamental disagreement between him within the group, and use that tension rather than him being like 100% okay with just going along with whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That may have been the way to save the Raxus. Well, save is the wrong word because this was still a pretty good episode.
Beef it up.
Yeah. To beef it up, to give it a little more significance.
Yeah.
And I think the Sid and Omega stuff does in a way need to happen, but I don't know that it needed to happen here or the way it did.
I want to see a conversation between Omega and the Senator. Kind of like her bringing her innocence and kind of disconnect from the previous conflict. Like, why do my team members hate you like this? Like, kind of, like they're in the bar together. They can have a little conversation off to the side. Like at the beginning of next episode. That'd be cool.
Yeah, if Omega was in the actual Raxus conflict,
mm-hmm.
we could have had an interaction, and we would have. Granted, we still have to maneuver somehow that they get out of debt with Sid, but I don't know that had to happen in
the mission.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think that side of the plot was necessary. Like you could, have it, and just bring it over. That would be fun. One little thing I noticed was Echo's line to the Senator to convince him to leave. He said, "Live to fight another day," which is like Hardcase's line back from the Umbara arc before he blew up the droid carrier thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but there was some fun stuff happening back on the planet. Just the scowl that the two patrons give Sid after she hurts Omega's feelings. They both look at her and it's like, like this audience surrogates.
And the fact that they don't fight inside, like I know it's a trope, but you can tell they're like, let's not do it in here. Like kids here, let's take this outside.
And we get a new nickname for Hunters. He's a bandana. So that along with was it Dark and Broody and Goggles.
Dark and Broody was good.
We need some more nicknames for the rest of the batch. Anything else about this episode you wanted to mention?
I think we just covered it. I mean, everything on Raxus was beautiful. I will say we focused entirely on that, with little exception. I will say that for what it's worth, as far as a distraction goes, and as far as like settling the debt goes, the Dejarik thing was charming.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, and it set up the conversation between Hunter and Omega at the end. And I like that we didn't see that match play out too.
Yeah. There was a cool bit of dialogue that was kind of pointed out to me by the Force Center podcast where, like, I think he totally knows he's going to lose, and that question, are you ready for this? Is like essentially, are you ready to fully enter our life? And it's like it's just a ceremony at this point.
Yeah, it's a formality.
Yeah, and just like looking at my background, the level of detail that they are putting into this show, just the lighting, the shadows, the walls. Like there's just so much they're putting into this world, the world building that's just so impressive. So just on that level, that's happening every episode, but every episode they're impressing me.
Yeah, generally speaking, I have been. I'm full confession. I wasn't super looking forward to the Bad Batch when it was announced and everything. But as the show's gone on, I've been happily wrong to be not hyped about this show. So I appreciate what it's been doing. It's a good show. And even though this episode is not up to the recent standard we've been seeing, and I think I agree wholeheartedly with you, it's been a rising standard. But even though this episode isn't quite that high, it's still very good.
Yeah. Quick question. What are your thoughts as far as where do you think the show is going? We only have 6 episodes left, and like the episode 10 or episode 9 kind of it finished up that conflict. This one was a very self-contained episode. So where do you think they're going right now?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't even have a good guess. I wish I had a more entertaining answer, but I don't.
If I had to guess, I think because this is it's for Sid, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much a rebels mission. Like they're saving an
Imperial dissident.
Yeah. So like that could bring them back into context with Rex or Bail Organa, which could bring them back. I don't know if you watched last week's review, but I'm hoping that it all goes back to Kamino and they go back to Kamino and just burn down the cloning program or something like this as like a rebel mission to stop them from giving the Imperials an army. That could have a lot of dramatic and thematic weight.
Yeah, I think so, because we already have the whole premise of this is we have a group of clones who are breaking step with their brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think would be a fantastic conclusion to this. I don't know though. I don't know. When this episode started out, I said, "Oh, we're going to get an interesting political episode," and that's not what we got. So I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, I think that is all for this week. As always, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. You can join us in the Outer Rim, a Star Wars group on Facebook. It's dedicated to positive and constructive Star Wars discussion. You can check out my podcast, Franchise Fatigue, and where you'll also find the audio versions for all the Bad Batch reviews. And where can people find you, Ryan?
The Raw Quiz Show. It's a YouTube channel. And we have seasons where we have people competing in trivia, but it's not your average trivia show. I recommend you give it a watch. There's been some Star Wars episodes here and there, so if you're into that, you can just go straight to one of those. But that's the main thing, the Raw Quiz Show.
All right, and we will see you, or at least I will see you next week with episode 11. See ya.